Hello everyone, welcome to Code Presents. I'm Philip Bauer, your host for today. I hope that everything's working out so far. Let's just quickly fix this presentation and let's get rolling. All right, hello everybody again. I'm Philip Bauer and I'm your host for today's Code Presents. I'm going to talk today about how you can develop desktop applications with Photino. For all of those who have not heard of Photino before, it's a framework that you can use to build C# and .NET applications with web technology for your UI. So whatever you like as a framework, for example, Vue or Angular, or just vanilla JavaScript and HTML, all of that can work as a UI for Photino applications. Before we really dive into this topic though, let me introduce myself and code, and I'll switch there. So again, I'm Philip Bauer. I'm a senior software developer at Code Consulting. I have over 15 years of experience building high quality software for all kinds of industries, from manufacturing to insurance and entertainment industries. I've done a lot of that. I also have a degree in digital media design, and I'm a certified media designer back in Germany. I now live in the United States. And since last year, I'm also officially a speaker at conferences. So if we happen to run into each other at one of 2024's conferences, please say hello, and we talk about Photino if you had a chance to use it by then. If you have any questions after the presentation or throughout, just send me a message on this email, pbauer@codemac.com, and we will also take a look at the chat here every now and then to see if there's any questions throughout the presentation. So let's talk a little bit about Code. Code is a company that consists of 4 different branches: the consulting branch, staffing, magazine, what you're probably familiar with, and the training branch. And for the last 30 years, we've been helping people build better software. So Code Consulting is a custom software development branch, or the custom software development branch from Code. And we're doing everything from web applications, applications in the cloud, to desktop applications, whatever your needs are. With the advent of generative AI and all of that, we also have a strong focus now on Copilot development and really everything ML and AI. We're doing a lot of project rescues and app modernizations, especially Visual Fox Pro applications, converting those to the newest .NET framework, and doing all of that in a very structured and process-oriented way with our clients. We're also doing application security testing and do, of course, support and maintain existing applications if that is something that our customers need. Talking about AI, we have a new executive briefing offer, and these executive briefings are mainly targeted at, well, you can imagine executives to gain a better understanding of how you can use AI in your business, and what pitfalls you might encounter, what issues you might have in the back of your head, wondering if you can use this technology today. And usually these offerings or this consulting is between an hour or even up to like a day of meetings, depending on your needs. If that is something that you're interested in, visit us at codemac.com/AI and codemac.com/executive briefing. To talk about our staffing branch real quick, since about a year we have this staffing branch that really disrupts the world of staffing, and it does that by actually offering benefits, industry leading benefits in this case, to the people who were working for us. It's not your regular staffing company that puts you on a project for half a year and then drops you until the next project comes along. No, you'll be a full-time employee, and you're like not just being shuffled around between projects. And you really enjoy a great benefit package, from healthcare to 401ks, all of that beautiful stuff. So if that is something that you want to employ as a company, or if you're interested in working for us, visit codestaffing.com. And we're also hiring across all of Code's branches. So if you do want to work with us, go to codestaffing.com/careers. Now, we have a few trainings coming up. The first one is an introduction to development with Azure OpenAI. So all of the OpenAI services that you're familiar with, but hosted on Azure for its value as a business platform. And Marcus Egger will present this on February the 27th. This is either online or in person. So head over to codemag.com/training if that is something you're interested in to sign up for. And as every year, we have a State of .NET scheduled as well. And since everything is AI this year, it'll be a State of AI 2024, again with Marcus Egger a day later on February 28th. So everyone who is here is probably familiar with the magazine already. And all the registered attendees will have a free digital subscription to the magazine automatically. And if you are visiting this video as a recording, you can just go to the link down on the slide here to sign up for Code Magazine and get your free subscription that way. And as with every Code Presents, we have a survey, and you can win a $100 Amazon gift card if you participate and complete this short survey. The survey needs to be completed by end of this week on Friday the 19th. And if you would like to participate, just follow the link down below. And I think this will also be added in the chat window here. All right, that's all that. And let's get into it. So what are we talking about today? We will take a look at what Photino is. So I will talk a little bit about the history of Photino and how it all came together, how we started with this project. We will talk about why you would want to use Photino. And we'll talk about how it works, a little bit more specifics about that. And in that vein, we'll also talk about the Photino ecosystem, all of the different packages that are out there and that you can use. And after we're done with that, we will take a look at how you can get started writing your own Photino apps. We will also take a look at a real-world application that we use here at Code that I developed for us. It's a great testing ground for everything for us, and a good example of what you can do with Photino. At the end, and if we have a little bit of time, we'll have a quick look at the upcoming things that we've planned for Photino, and maybe a couple of things where you think, hey, I can help out with this project. This seems interesting, and I'd like to contribute on that. I'm just gonna slide some things around here on my other display for a moment. Alrighty, cool. So, what is Photino? All right, all this didn't work out quite well. There we go. What is Photino? So, as I explained, Photino is an open source desktop application framework that you can use to build native cross-platform applications that work on Windows, macOS, and Linux. Yes, Linux. Looking at you, Maui. And you can use your favorite JavaScript frameworks or even Blazor for the front end or the UI of your application. We've tested it so far going from Windows 10 upwards, macOS 10 plus, and many Linux distributions. there are some smaller Linux distributions that you might want to try out. We know there are a few issues with, for example, Steam Deck, but there's an issue that we are working on right now, but we're very hopeful that these kinds of things are all able to be compatible. So even if you have something exotic like SteamOS, you should be able to use Photino for these kinds of platforms as well. Our native libraries that we distribute with Photino are all compatible with x64 and ARM64 processors for all operating systems, including Windows ARM64 and macOS ARM64, for example, for your Apple Silicon lovers out there like I am, and all of this is currently running on macOS, if you're wondering. Photino is originally based on an experimental project from Steve Sanderson that we've picked up in 2021 and took the baton and really ran with that. Our first NuGet package was released in May of 2021. And since then, and I just checked, we're at about 56,000 downloads since then, if you look at NuGet. So what can you do with it though? And I just rearranged my windows here so I see the chat. Tom, Code Group is working. We have a couple of developers that would be Mike Jaeger, Otto Dobritsberger, and myself who are working on this project. And we took it as something that we want to use for ourselves and give back to the community. So yes, it is from Code Group, you could say. So what can you do with it? I will show you the application that we will take a closer look at later, just to give you an idea of how a fully fledged Photino application might feel like when you use it on your own computer. So I'll jump out of PowerPoint here real quick, and you should see some code here. Let's just take this here, better aspect ratio. So as you can see, this is just my project here, and I'll just hit .NET Run, and I get my Photino window right here. So to prove to you all that this is an actual web implementation, Photino allows you to use your usual debug tools that you can use in your browser as well. So when you work on a Photino application, you really are in a space that is very familiar to anyone who's ever built a web application. It's the same tooling, really easy to work with. And as you can see here, it's all just HTML, and in my case, I have not even used a framework. It's just vanilla JS, HTML, and CSS for this application. But you can do some nice things like drag and drop from a folder, for example. I have one prepared here with a video. And this application uses native libraries in the background for some of its functionality. For example, to transcode a video and then later transcribe it, we use FFmpeg in the background, and I have not installed it on my system. No, it's just delivered as a single file executable here, and it can convert a video into an audio stream that gets then picked up by Whisper, OpenAI's Whisper for transcription. And then later, we can use the transcription to run, in this case, and I'll demonstrate this after this has run through, we can even run local large language models, open source language models on this to ask questions against the transcript here. So all of that using C# and .NET on the backend, or my backend code, and JavaScript on the front end here. So this is an .NET 7 presentation from Marcus Egger from a little while ago. You can even see here I got preview images using FFmpeg, just extracting all of that. And then we can ask a question what is this recording about, let's say. And in the background, you can see here now that Mistral 7B instruct was loaded. And now we're doing some inference right here on the computer based on this transcript. While that is running, I'm gonna take a quick look at the chat. No questions so far, okay. This usually takes a little bit, and I'm doing streaming, so resources are a little bit sparse right now for all of this. So we can come back to this later, but it works. You'll see the message in a little bit. Let's get back to the presentation here. All right, not to lose my view here. All right, cool. So, other direction. Why would you want to use Photino? I guess by now you can think of very good reasons already. You can use your C# and .NET skills and your web front-end skills. I came into this as a web developer. I've been in that field for over 15 years now, starting with static websites, doing PHP, now single page applications, all of that kind of stuff. And that's where I feel comfortable with. To be honest, I'm a fan. HTML, CSS, for me, that's bread and butter. Whenever I looked at other desktop application frameworks like WPF or what is it on macOS? Not Dart. I looked at Dart. I looked at all kinds of things. I always, my heart is with HTML and CSS. So for me, this is a great tool to make applications because I feel very, very comfortable with that. But I also get all of the benefits from using C# and .NET. So I have access to operating system APIs, for example, reading a file path, writing to the disk, using all kinds of libraries like I've just shown you. The possibilities here are really endless when you have that ability. You of course have your large selection of NuGet packages because it's all tying into that .NET framework. If you have an existing application, a web application, for example, it is totally conceivable that you use your single page application and port it down to a desktop app using an API for your communication. We'll get to that in a little bit. Or write a companion app to your already existing web application. Something that you can just borrow from your front-end code and make calls through to an HTTP API. Another good reason to use Photino is, especially considering other solutions for web front-end frameworks for desktop applications like Electron, is this small resource footprint that we have. There's a question here from Stephen. Yes, was already answered there. Yes, it is using the embedded browser that comes with your operating system. And because we're using this embedded browser instead of shipping our own engine like Electron does, the file size is far, far smaller. So we don't need that Node.js runtime. We don't need the Chromium browser as a package dependency, but we use the built-in WebKit controls, WebKit for macOS and Linux, and WebView 2 for Windows. And if you are distributing your application as a framework dependent application, you can see here that on especially macOS and Ubuntu, the file size are extremely small. Now you can also see that standalone with the .NET runtime bundled is also a lot smaller than an Electron app. So the same is true for for macOS and Ubuntu as well for the memory use, for the starter app. And so here we took an Electron starter app and ran it on all of these platforms, and then we compared that with our Photino starter app. And generally, Of course, starter apps don't do much, but it's a good indicator of where we stand comparatively with Electron. I see Steve there has a question. Yes, we can use multiple windows, and we'll get to that. Maybe we can even take a quick look here. I just need to make sure that my presentation looks right here. So as you can see here, there's the response from my local large language model. That came out really nicely. And yes, multiple windows are absolutely a possibility, like I have here with my configuration window. All of that is no problem at all. Let's see. So how does this work? We have a package that's called Photino Native, and this is implementing the access to the browser control to the embedded browser from your system, and is giving us that API that we can hook into and do all of the different calls to the operating system's APIs for window management, events, system dialogues like the file dialogues, for example, notifications, all of that cool stuff. And then in our main NuGet package, the Photino.net package, we have C# bindings that provide our hooks into that native code. And that's what we're calling. The package is also delivering a IPC inter-process communication with the web front end that basically injects some custom JavaScript into the browser. So it's we basically smuggle in some extra code that's always there, and that way we can kind of communicate with that web front end through specific methods that we'll explore later. So the greater Photino ecosystem looks like the following. At the core of it, we have the Photino native package, which is just the wrapper for the WebKit and WebView controls. In Windows and Linux, it's both C++ for Win32 and GTK respectively. On macOS, we're using Objective-C++ with the Cocoa framework. This package is released as I said earlier, as x64 and ARM64 packages. We don't support with x32, so that's just too old. There's too little interest in that we would support that platform. There's a whole can of worms connected to that. Then next up is the Photino.net package. This is the main package of Photino. This includes the C# bindings and the unified API to all of the different calls in Photino native. This is something that you can, when you use it, configure either via a Fluent API for those who like that style, or through a parameter object during startup. That is all up to you. We have an optional Photino.net server package, and this is a Kestrel server that we've set up for static file serving. If you use something like Vue or Angular or React, you usually have dynamic JavaScript module loading, and that does not work from a file path. So you need an HTTP server in the background serving all of those files. Otherwise, you'll run into course compatibility issues. This is up to you if you want to use it. It is a great little add-on that you can use to make that file serving simple if you don't have something that you spin up yourself, like a Kestrel server in the background with resources that come with that. And for everyone who likes to use Blazor in their front end or for their UI, there's a Photino.blazor package available for all of you as well. This is a little bit of it in its own track. There are a lot of issues that are very much connected to how Blazor works with Photino. So it's a little bit of a separate development, and we have great community members that have created this package, and we help support that, of course, now as well within the larger Photino ecosystem. And lastly, this is not a NuGet package, but definitely worth mentioning. On our GitHub page, you will find a photino.samples repository that gives you a starting point for your own projects. And you can use either Angular, React, Vue. There's demonstrations for how to use multi-window applications, how to use that static file server. And then down there, you also see the test bench, which is a sample application that shows off all the different functionalities that you can use and how to use them. And of course, if you have a keen eye, you also see things like gRPC in there. So it's you're not bound by the inter-process communication that we suggest through JavaScript and what I'm going to show you today, but you can use things like gRPC, web workers, HTTP, all of that for communications in your application as well. So if you have any questions, there's the tryphotino.io website which has getting started guides. I think there's a short video on it, a link to the documentation pages and so on. And you will find us, of course, on GitHub, where we had, well, this is 2 months ago, we're at 750-ish stars now. So if you like this, please give us a star. That helps out a lot. And on NuGet, you will find us simply under Photino with, well, as I explained earlier, we're at about 55,000 downloads now, which is really cool. It's very exciting. So before we're getting started, let's see here. There are a couple of questions. Can a Photino app create multiple windows? Yes. Resulting app run on Android or Apple phones? No, not yet. It is, well, let me just go ahead, talk about the roadmap a little bit. It is something that's on our roadmap. We just don't have the expertise really to implement that. For us, it would be a very hard thing to do. So we're still looking for people who have more experience with Android and iOS devices. So it is possible from what we know, but that native, the native package needs to be extended to probably for iOS, integrate that in Swift, and for Android in Java. So we're not the right people for that. Can it do full screen and multi-screen? Yes and no. I'm not sure if we can do one over multi-screen. We'll get to that in a little bit. Can you embed Node.js? Probably. You could implement Node.js, or if there's a Node.js installation already present, hook into that. Yocto Linux, never heard of that distribution. Probably. You can try that. Yocto. And is Photino a replacement for Visual Studio? No, it's you would use Visual Studio to create Photino apps though. So WebSockets should be supported. I personally haven't tried it out, but WebSockets should be supported. All right, so let's take a look at how you can get started building a Photino app. And what we're going to do is we will set up a new Photino window and load a simple HTML-based frontend. Then we're going to look at how you can send messages between C# and JavaScript. We'll start out very simple here and build on top of that. We will then take a little bit, we'll take a look at what window manipulation and management options you have for Photino. And then later we build on that first messaging that we had to expand on that, build on top of that messaging, make something more complicated, something more production ready. And I will also explain why we are not doing that necessarily by default. So if you want to get started, the simplest way is to create a new console application and then add the Photino.net package. You can either do that through the Visual Studio Package Manager or through the CLI by using .NET Add Package. Both are valid option, depends really, I think, on what IDE you're most comfortable with. If you're a Visual Studio fan, then you can use that, or use the CLI for if you use Visual Studio Code. After that, you will have your initial console application, and instead of using that simple, you only get a console log these days. So you will want to go back to your classic program CS, let's say, with a static main method here. And for Windows applications, it's important to add the STA thread attribute. This is for the single-threaded apartment, for the communication message pump to COM components. So a little bit of ritual here just needs to be there for Windows applications to run correctly. But that is really all the ritual that you have with Photino applications to get started. And then we can simply continue by instantiating a new Photino window, and we're having a very simple setup here where we just set a title and load a raw string. So this latter command, the load raw string, is really just doing that. Imagine you have a browser with a file that you open, basically a text file. And it would just display whatever text you have in the file. It's pretty much the same. And then at the end, we have a window.waitForClose. This is to start the loop. It opens the window and waits for the window to close. So this is everything really that you need to do to get things started. And this is how that looks like. So you only have a simple default Photino window at this point with just hello world as its content. But of course, it's not very helpful. So we want to load some form of HTML website. And we start out here by just having a simple hello world as an h1 header. So instead of using that load raw string method here, we can use the load method and point it to a file in our file directory. By default, we're using www.root and then index.html. And then we have our first Photino application with an HTML page. And you can see the hello world is now formatted as a default serif hello world headline. So all still fairly easy but not useful. So let's add a button. We want interaction in our applications, so we need buttons. And here I'm adding a button with some simple style, and it's not doing anything. Of course not. This is still just HTML and CSS. Next, we're gonna take a look at how you can actually send messages between C# and JavaScript. So to send a message between the C# code and the JavaScript code, we have a specific handler, and that is called the register web message received handler. So when we send a message from the UI, we call that a web message because it's coming from the web front end, and we receive it from the front end. So that is what we have to handle. Now, this is just a simple static action. It's a request handler with two parameters here with the object sender and a string message. The object sender is basically a the pointer to where our Photino window that receives the message is located in memory. So we can cast that to a window, and we have our Photino window object. And with that, we can then simply use the methods that we have on our Photino window, and in this case, send a web message back to the UI. And in this case, in this little demonstration, we just take the message that we received, package it up in a received message, and then the message string, and then it's getting sent back to the front end. In the front end itself, our button receives a add event listener for the click, and here is that method, that JavaScript method that we inject into the JavaScript namespace. We're using window.external as our namespace, and then send message is our command to send a message to the C# code. And then to do something with the message that we send from C# and receive on the JavaScript end, we use the window.external receive message method to add a handler here. And in our case, we just push the message that we receive into an alert window. And this is how that looks like. So next up, we're going to take a look at what kinds of window manipulations there are, the basics. But I'm going to take a quick look here at the chat to see what's going on there. And I see Mike has already answered a lot here. Is there anything that's still open? No, I think he's got everything. Scott, I just see your question. No, that is something that you need to manually add for Mac applications. That's beyond the scope of what Photino can do. There are instructions on how to bundle third-party apps for the Mac App Store, and from what I've read, there is a little bit of Xcode magic involved. This is something that currently I'm researching and putting instructions together for, so you can publish applications. Something that if we have time, we'll touch on today shortly. But you can create an executable and create it as an application bundle or a .app file, basically, for macOS. And I think the entitlements just need to be added to that rough format that I already have. So, window manipulation and management. Of course, something that we expect from desktop applications is the ability to set sizes and locations and all of that. And this is how you do that for Photino. For specific reasons, we have to set the use of the default size to false here with that method that you see here, and then set our size. This is mainly because of Windows, but something that you should include for all platforms. So if we change this default to 420 by 200, you can see the Photino application simply changes with that. You can also set the location on your screen, of course. We have some helper functions here that can center the application in the center of your screen, of your primary screen, or you set the location yourself to a point on the coordinate system of your desktop. You can also do things like Chromeless windows, and there's no demonstration here because it's not the right format, but full screen windows are a possibility as well. And if you combine the two, set Chromeless and full screen, you have something like a kiosk app that you can use. Now, we can do some interesting interactions now between the window and where something appears on the screen. So I have a little fun demo here where when I hover over the window, it gets scared and runs away. So as you can see here, we have a request handler that gets triggered by getting onto the window with the cursor, and it creates a random location on a radius and then jumps that, it sets the location to that. So basically like this. Now next, I expand on that. We still are in our request handler, our message loop between the C# and the JavaScript code. If I receive a message of an exploding UTF string here, and I'm just using this to demonstrate that this is string. This can be pretty much whatever you like. A simple string, it can be a JSON, it can be base64 encoded, can be everything string-based that you like. When that happens, it just creates new windows and spawns them in random locations. So this is how that works. Now this is kind of towards the question of, are multi-window applications a possibility? Yes, absolutely. And not just 2 windows, not 3 windows, it can be as many as you like. So here we are basically setting the same window just with a different spawn location, but it reuses everything else. The request handler that we created here on the left, that's reusing that. So all of what you see here. So that then in the end results in that fun application that I wrote over 15 years ago to annoy my fellow computer science students, and eventually crashes their system. So that's all fun and games, but we need something more robust for messaging between the front end and the back end, so to say. We have decided, at least we're at the point currently as a Photino team, to not give you the way to communicate between your JavaScript and C# code. This can be as bespoke as you need it to be. I came up with a way that works really well for me by creating request and respond objects in C# that are typed and are then used as JSON objects for the communication between the C# and the JavaScript. Since I use just vanilla JavaScript, the JavaScript side, but you could totally conceive a generator, or code generator that uses the C# request and respond objects that I've defined, and we'll see in a moment, and create TypeScript out of that, so that you have strong typing on both sides of your application, on the C# and on the TypeScript end, if you use that. So if you want to do something similar, just you can totally use this as well. Instead of the request handler that we just had, I add a more complex request handler here within an action router class that I've created. And this request handler is doing a few things. It is taking again that Photino window or sender object and the JSON that I just talked about. So we get a request, and this request is in JSON format. And for my first iteration here in my code, I just look for the action. So my JSON, my request object has an action parameter or property, sorry, and that is just a string for the action that I try to match. And if I see that, I look for that request, which is, or for a handler for that request, which has a specific interface. So this is all using reflection, if you couldn't guess to this point. I then create a request handler instance. So I have my handler class, and I create an instance of that. using my window, the action and the handler type. And then I can invoke all of that dynamically using the handler type, handler, and the request JSON that I get from the JavaScript code. So this is how that action request looks in its simplest form. There's the aforementioned action property, and I have a request ID here as well. So I can identify each request that comes from the front end into the back end, and then use that same ID to send my responses with that ID to match again on the front end. So these are all, like you can imagine, just details for my specific implementation, and kind of the reason why we don't want to do something default or something that we just put into the Photino project, because it might give the wrong impression of that this is what you need to use. This is just something that we built on top of it. Then we can, of course, use this simple action request. As you can see, this is an abstract class to create more elaborate requests. And in this case, I want to demonstrate how you can open the file dialog and select the file, because that is something very important, especially when you are coming from the web. You know, the file picker for a web application does not give you an absolute path to a file on your file system. So we are going through C# to get a native file dialog that will return us a absolute path to the file that we want to use. And this is the aforementioned handler for that. So again, we have our action request. The action request is matched with a handler via interface, and that is then executed dynamically. So this comes with all of the nice stuff that you can do instantiating. You have your class constructor and all of that. So now inside of this, again, I have access to my window that comes through, and the window has a show open file method that is used to open a file dialog. And I'm taking the title, default path, the multi-select option, and filters if there are any, and use that to open that file dialog. At the end, I will use the action response here to just send an action response with the identifier. There's a little bit of magic going on the back end, or that you can see here. For example, the request ID is just set based on the incoming request. That's all transparent in my application. And before we see this in action, we need to take a quick look at how that looks like from the JavaScript side. So we have our button again. This time it says select file, and we have an event listener that sends this action request from earlier as a JSON. So here I have a convenience method that's called send request that basically just turns our JSON object here into, our JavaScript object into a JSON string, and adds the required request ID and such transparently, so I don't have to worry about that. On the receiving side, when we get that action response back, and this is a simplified way, you probably want to be a little bit more elaborate when you use when you do your routing here in JavaScript. I just get my response, parse the JSON, and then depending on the action, I route here to the specific code that I want to invoke. In this case, I'm just taking the file paths from my payload that I sent back and create a simple HTML list that I then append after the button. And this is what that looks like in action. So that is the kickstart into the world of Photino. I will take you now back to the application that I showed you earlier, the transcription application, and we'll take a little bit of a deeper dive there. And based on your questions that you have, I'll try to react, and we can kind of work through some of your questions, perhaps on a code basis. Before I get there, though, I want to take a quick look again here at the chat and see what's going on here. I see that Mike has already answered a lot, but I just want to see if there's anything to add. So yeah, no Xcode required, which is nice, except for possibly getting this ready, getting an application ready for distribution in the App Store. Are Blazor hybrid apps and Photino apps similar? Yes, okay. That is, Mike has already said that. Right. And messages. Yeah, and like I said, so if you want to have a different type of communication, you can certainly use that. You can certainly use gRPC as a communication protocol, or HTTP APIs, or something along those lines. It's all fairly accessible. I've come, the way that I've just demonstrated using JSON objects has been very robust for me so far and very speedy. If there are, I would say there are probably limits of doing this, where you would want to switch to something that is not string based, but you know, just has more efficient ways of communicating with the backend. You probably want to use that, but so far, just for a fairly simple application like this, has been working pretty well. So let's jump out of this and make sure that you have the right view. Switching back to this. And let's close this. So one thing that I want to show you is just how this is set up in detail, instead of just the couple of parameters that we set in our demo. I want to show you how to publish this even. I want to just demonstrate that you can do an actual application. Is a demonstration. I will publish this as a Windows ARM64 version that I can just execute in my virtual machine. So I'll warm that up real quick and show it off in a moment. But let's first concentrate here on the available parameters, because that's something that we've had a little bit of feedback on. It's like, is this all? No. We have a bunch of different parameters, and I can probably, the easiest, show you using our test bench project. So here I'm going to the samples, and I'm going to the test bench. Just open this for a moment. So let's take a look at all the things that we can configure here. You see in our test bench project here, just checking if this is the most current. No, it is not. Probably need to do a quick git pull here. Yes, I did. Just so we get the newest stuff. I apologize for my unpreparedness here. Well, this is a big stash then. Or not. Jeez. Once you try something live, right? Is there really? There we go. Okay, let's see. So this should be 2.60, that's the newest. And then we can take a look here. So yeah, there we go. So we have the fluent style and property init style that I mentioned earlier here. So if you're more comfortable with a fluent API style, then you can use that. If you're more comfortable using configuration objects, that can be passed as well. Just take a look here. We recently had some advancements in how you can control the browser control itself. You'll find a browser init example here. So there are situations where your browser control itself needs some fine tuning. For example, certain security mechanisms that are on by default for your browser control, like coarse issues, things like that. You might want to disable those in certain contexts, and that is something that you can do with these flags that you can set. For Windows, this is just as simple as adding flags in a string here. Those get passed directly into the browser control during startup, during initialization of that. And you can add either flags or options with values here. For macOS and Linux, we have a JSON serializer approach here. So the initialization of browser options is very much different on the Windows side and the macOS and Linux side, because one is WebView, one is WebKit, and we use JSON objects on the Unix sides to create those options and to set those options. And let's comment this out again. So here you have all the different ways of loading something, from URIs, HTTP connections, and localhost scenarios. All of that is something that we've tested recently to create, to figure out some bugs. That's why we have all of these in here. We have everything from static loading to localhost here. That could be either your static file server. This could be a node environment. There is, I'm not sure if this is part of the example, but so that you can use hot reloading, you can add a little switch in there that during debug you have your view front end in an application folder that gets hosted by Node.js, for example, during development, and it creates a localhost server at port, I don't know, 3000, for example. You could load that port 3000 during active development, and later on you can use something static after you bundled everything up during your publish, so that you have hot reloading on during development, because that is something that doesn't work together. Mind you, hot reloading of C# will not hot reload necessarily your front end. So if you use some framework that can do hot reloading, it's you can change that based on your environment variables. Windows settings. For Windows, you can of course set icon files. This will not apply for macOS and Linux because they don't support that icon up in the task or in the Chrome. Everything from Chrome list, full screen, there was a question earlier, maximized, max sizes you can set as well, max width, max height, minimize something programmatically, set a minimum size so you can make the window smaller than that. Generally, making things resizable will require you to set a flag for that. Setting a window as the topmost window. So everything that you can really think of is supported. You can move your window relatively to a point. You can set it to an absolute location. You can turn off the context menu that you saw earlier, or you can enable and disable the development tools depending on your environment if you want to have this available during development but not in your production application. Grant browser permissions is something that you can use for granting permissions to use the camera and the microphone without having to prompt the user for using those permissions. So this is a big one. If you use your microphone and camera in a web application, you know that your browser will ask you, hey, am I allowed to use these resources? This is something, since we have that low-level access, we can circumvent and just grant outright to the application, because this is not something people are familiar with when they use desktop applications. Again, the browser control init parameters are set in a method just like that as well. You have different kinds of file system access enabled. That's from JavaScript. Ignoring certificate errors, allowing JavaScript clipboard access. That's an important one. And you see the defaults here. Media autoplay, all of that. So if there's something that you think of, yeah, but I know that this and that is not working with a web browser, there is a good chance that you can actually make it happen because you have that low-level access. So let's see here. For just push play on more steps to attach the debug once running. Yeah, we can take a quick look at debugging an application like this. Absolutely, that's a good point. Then you have seen the register web message received handler, but there are more of these handlers as well, from creating a window to location changes, size changes, something that we use, for example, to display debug logs in some instances. All of that can be used. And this is the Fluent API style that I mentioned. And then if you're more inclined to use an object-based approach, you can do that as well, just by setting them in this fashion, just like this. There is one thing when you look at these demo applications, and I'll just run this, you will see a pop-up after a specific timeout. We're opening a pop-up here in our sample applications, and this is done by injecting some JavaScript code into the web page itself. So there is an app custom scheme that you can add here. Register custom scheme handler app, and then a function for that. And if we look into the main, we should see app somewhere. Oh, here it is. I think it's commented out here. So we could on startup create dynamic JavaScript, and with this method inject that dynamic JavaScript into the website. So if you have any need for that, you don't need to do a callback into the C# application right in the beginning, but you can set up your website, your front end, your UI with these things. I don't know, you could, for example, load custom messages, custom UI components, add certain CSS styles dynamically. However, whatever you want to do with this, there's a chance to inject some dynamic JavaScript code. So let's open this up real quick. And it opens over there. So here you can see the request handlers on the bottom here. The location handlers, the size handlers, all of that. Firing here. You can do maximize. You can do, so here's our context menu. Here we go. DevTools on, DevTools off. Things like that are all possible here programmatically as well. And I can't show you the video and microphone pass-through because it's in use right now, but this window down here, this gray box, would show you just that. You can try out toast notifications on macOS. Need a bundled application. That's not possible here in debug mode, but certainly possible. Child windows, and it opened over here. Things like that. You can navigate to websites. All of that kind of stuff is possible, and we can close it. So debugging experience is fairly straightforward. So in this application here for the transcriber, I have my Visual Studio already set up with launch.json and task.json here to open the debugger correctly, and I can just hit F5 here and start debugging, and it will in a second hit that debug point, so you can just do all of your debugging just as you're accustomed to. There's nothing different in that experience from the C# perspective. Now, on the front end, if we just let this run, again, you can just use the browser tools that come with the WebKit or WebView custom browser control and go into your sources. In my case, it's fairly simple, no packaging included, so this is a pretty good way to show this. I have my home HTML that is loaded in this window, and it comes with its specific JavaScript files. So if you want to do something like, let's say, debugging the resize handler here, is this, wow, look at me talking about something and then it doesn't work. Why is this not working? Let's see this again. Let's try add media. This is not good to, let's see if we can drop something here and then it should work. Let's see. There we go. We stopped here. Now we should be able to look at the drag event as you're used to, and we can continue. Here it says confirm, and it's transcribing, and now it has transcribed this little snippet here. So all of this should feel like native applications if you implement it right. So all of the resizing here, for example, is just done with JavaScript, of course, and that's hopefully illuminating that debugging point a little bit. Is there anything else? Just push play on more steps to attach the bigger ones running. Yeah, as you're familiar with C# development, all of the debugging steps should work just out of the box here, just as well. So we don't have much time left, I think. No, wait, no, we don't have much time left. It's already 1:08. But I would like to just show you real quick that we can actually do cross operating system compilation or publishing here. So if I do something like .NET publish, we can use the RIDs here to generate something like a WinArm64 application. And when we then inspect our binary release folder here, we have, well, this is still running, but we'll see a code transcriber exe file. I can reveal that here in my Finder. I have a sharing folder here in for my virtual machine. I'll take this. So this is 98.5 megabytes. This includes the runtime, .NET runtime. This includes FFmpeg files, which are both about 70 something, FFmpeg and FFprop, which are both about 70 megabytes big. This includes all of my code. This includes Whisper and all of that. Everything combined in one file. And then by using, where is it? Code transcriber. By using so self-contained for the .NET runtime, publish single file, so it's a single file, including all contents, and then enable compression and single file. So you can get those distribution files pretty small. Let's copy this over to here. And here I have my virtual machine. Will you let me move you? Thank you. So in here, I can now go and copy, replace this file and open it here. Well, show yourself. Let's try this again. Well, now it doesn't want to, of course. But I don't think this is... I know now. I didn't consider that I messed around with the program here. I should set the location to center again, because this is something I did for demonstration purposes earlier. Let's try this again. Yeah, it's opening off screen. That's exactly. So let's try this one more time, and thank you for everyone who's still staying on. I know that we're already running over. But publishing is pretty important, I think. So let's try to get this working real quick. Replace. Okay, open up that path again. Replacing this. It's still open. Now it's centered. And I can just drag and drop this in here. So drag and dropping a large file into a window is an interesting proposition. I have to go a little bit around. You would usually use the add media file here, but if you drag and drop, you're bound by web front-end technology again, and you just get a byte array of the file, and you need to turn that into base64, send that to the backend, and then put that into a temporary file before you can actually process it. That's why this took a little bit longer. But using the add media file, I get the absolute path to the file on disk, and it would be a lot faster using it that way. So as you can see, it just created used FFmpeg, which again is not installed in this machine, but it's just bundled with the application, and uses that to create from the MP4. It creates a WAV file that is then used to transcribe it. And this is a lot slower on here because it's virtualized and doesn't have hardware acceleration. So I'll just stop it here, but it works. As you can see, it's all bundled neatly and just working if you wanted to. Same with Linux. You can also do application bundles on macOS to just double click on it. I have that somewhere in here, an older version, mind you, but it's, I guess, okay, well, I don't know what I did last time with this. I have been ignoring this one for a while, so it might just not work. Might have left it in a development state. So, but it is possible. You can just create those applications for macOS because they're basically just folders with a .app extension. I will create some guidance on how to create these files, executable files for all platforms, and we're releasing that soon in our documentation. So if you're interested in that, just follow Photino on GitHub. We have a Photino documentation repository where this will be added to. All right, last things. Let's get back to that presenter view here. Let's get back to the presentation. So our roadmap, we've discussed this a little bit earlier upon request. We're trying to find people, or if there's any one of you out there that's interested in helping us getting this ready for iOS and Android. So if you're familiar with Swift development and or Java development for Android, please reach out to us because we would love to get this even further and on devices in our pockets. We'd also have a couple more things that we're working on, like native menus that is on the roadmap, and we're working on that currently. Someone else is trying to help us out with that, and a couple of other big things that are on the roadmap. So if you want to help us with any of this, and if you're interested in using it, visit us at github.com/tryphotino. You'll find all of our repositories there. We are trying as best as we can to respond to issues as fast as we can. And then lastly, a shout out to all of our contributors that have helped us to get where we are at now. Thank you all. Maybe some of you are listening in today, and if you do, thank you so much for helping. If you are interested in more presentations like this, please subscribe and ring the bell to never miss any of our new videos that are coming up. And well, you are here already at youtube.com/codemac. And that's it for today from me. Thank you so much. If you have any other questions, you can find me at pbauer@codemac.com. Send me an email there. Connect with me on LinkedIn, GitHub, Blue Sky, or for anyone who's at conferences and that use the Hoover app, I'm there as well. So thank you all so much for attending today and for paying attention. I hope that this illuminated how you can use Photino to build some desktop applications yourself. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing from all of you. Please share your projects with us. We're always happy to see what you folks are coming up with using Photino. All right, thank you so much.